The world of dogs is vast, filled with Goldens, Shepherds, and Poodles. But the dogs we see today are just a tiny snapshot in time. Hidden in the pages of history are breeds that no longer exist, ghosts of the canine world that lived, worked, and then vanished forever. Some were bred for jobs that became obsolete, some were victims of war, and some were biological experiments that went terribly wrong. Let us wind the clock back to the 16th century. Meet the Turnspit Dog, the kitchen appliance that breathed. Before electricity, roasting meat evenly was a tedious task. The Turnspit Dog was bred specifically to run inside a wooden wheel, turning the spit over the fire. These dogs had crooked legs and long bodies, designed for the wheel. On Sundays, they were taken to church to serve as foot warmers. But when mechanical spits were invented in the 1800s, the Turnspit Dog became unemployed, considered ugly and common. Nobody wanted them as pets. Within a few decades, they were gone. Today, only one stuffed Turnspit Dog remains in a museum in Wales, a silent testament to a lost worker. Now, let's travel to the coast of North America to meet the Salish Wool Dog. Long before sheep arrived, these dogs provided the fiber for clothing. Kept by the coast Salish people, these small white dogs were sheared every summer. They were kept on isolated islands to prevent breeding with hunting dogs. Their fur was spun into yarn for blankets. But when Europeans brought cheap sheep's wool and Hudson's Bay blankets, the wool dog's value collapsed. By 1900, they were extinct. The only evidence we have left are the ancient blankets in museums and DNA fragments in some village dogs. From peaceful weavers to terrifying warriors, meet the Molossus, the grandfather of all mastiffs, the war dog of antiquity. Mentioned by Aristotle and Virgil, these beasts marched across the Alps with the Romans. They were used to guard livestock and fight in the arena. They didn't just die out, they diluted. The Molossus lives on in the DNA of the Mastiff, the Rottweiler, and the St. Bernard. Speaking of ancestors, let's look at the Talbot. If you see a Beagle or a Bloodhound today, you are looking at the legacy of the Talbot. These pure white scenthounds were the status symbol of the Middle Ages. But they were slow. As hunting evolved to be faster, the Talbot was left behind. By the 18th century, they had vanished, leaving their name only on English pub signs and in the family crests of nobility. In the icy waters of Newfoundland lived the St. John's Water Dog. This is perhaps the most important extinct breed for modern dog owners. Why? Because the St. John's Water Dog is the father of the Labrador Retriever and the Golden Retriever. They were the original fishermen's helpers. They went extinct due to bureaucracy. High taxes on dogs in Newfoundland and strict quarantine laws in the UK strangled the breeding population. The last known St. John's Water Dogs died in the early 1980s. Two males named Lassie and Lummox. Being both male, the line ended with them. Now for a darker tale, the Cordoba Fighting Dog of Argentina. A creature bred for one purpose only: absolute aggression. They were so aggressive that they would rather fight than breed. A male and female placed together would often kill each other instead of mating. This hyper-aggression was their downfall. They were biologically unstable. However, they were crossbred to create the Dogo Argentino, a stable hunter. In the Swiss Alps, before the Saint Bernard became famous, there was the Alpine Spaniel. They carried the first barrels of brandy to lost travelers. Extinction came in the form of disease and crossbreeding. By the 1850s, the pure Alpine Spaniel was gone, absorbed into the modern St. Bernard. Let's move to Hawaii. The Hawaiian Poi Dog was a spiritual protector, and unfortunately, a food source for the native islanders. He fed a diet of poi fermented taro root. Their skulls changed shape. They became flat-headed and sluggish. They were never bred to hunt or work. As Western dogs arrived, the Poi Dog interbred into oblivion. The feral dogs you see in Hawaii today are not Poi Dogs. The true lineage is lost. Not all extinct dogs are ancient. The Moscow Water Dog was a Soviet military experiment in the 1950s. They wanted the ultimate water rescue dog. They crossed the Newfoundland with the Caucasian Shepherd. The result was a disaster. The dog would swim to the drowning person, but then bite them. The rescue dog had too much guard instinct. The program was scrapped, and the breed was allowed to die out. Now, let's look at a breed that is technically alive but so rare it is like seeing a ghost. The New Guinea singing dog. For decades, they were thought to be extinct in the wild. They are known for their unique howl, which sounds like whale song or yodeling. In 2016, a camera trap confirmed they still exist in the high altitudes. They are living fossils, unchanged for thousands of years. The Saluki is ancient, but have you heard of the Tisam? The hunting dog of ancient Egypt, depicted with upright ears and a curled tail. The Tisam is likely the ancestor of the Bazenji and the Slaufi. It walked the halls of pharaohs, and then vanished into the sands of time. The Kur of New Zealand is another lost Pacific breed. Like the poi dog, they were brought by Polynesian voyagers. They were prized for their fur and teeth, often used in jewelry. The arrival of European dogs brought diseases that wiped them out by the 1860s. The Norfolk Spaniel. Before the Springer Spaniel took over, this was the common bird dog of England. It wasn't disease that killed them. It was a pen stroke. The Kennel Club decided to group them with Springer Spaniels, and the specific breed identity was erased. The Tahltan Bear Dog, a tiny dog with a lion's heart, kept by the Tahltan people of Canada to hunt black bears. They had a distinctive shaving brush tail. They were light enough to run on top of crusty snow while the bear sank in. Despite efforts to save them, the last Tahltan Bear Dog died in the 1970s. A unique hunting strategy lost forever. The Blue Poll Terrier, a pirate's dog. Legend says they were brought to Scotland by the pirate Paul Jones. They were fierce fighters, the first bull and terrier types. They disappeared in the early 20th century, likely absorbed into the Staffordshire Bull Terrier. The Russian Trekker, a massive herding dog, 100 pounds of golden wool. They were the smarter, faster cousins of the Golden Retriever. The breed was sold to a circus troupe in the 1800s, and the remaining stock was crossbred. The Golden Retriever we love today carries their ghost. The Southern Hound, a heavy, slow dog with a deep voice used in the American colonies. They were simply too slow for modern hunters. They were bred with faster dogs to create the coonhounds we know today. The English White Terrier, a show dog created in the 1860s. They were beautiful, porcelain, white, and fragile. They suffered from deafness and immune issues. Breeders realized that perfect white came with a genetic price. They went extinct, but not before helping create the Bull Terrier and the Boston Terrier. Their genes live on in these tough survivors. The Tweed Water Spaniel, another key ancestor of the Golden Retriever. They were intelligent, calm water dogs from the Scottish borders. Lord Tweedmouth used a Tweed Water Spaniel named Belle to breed the first Goldens. Without Belle, the Golden Retriever would not exist. Yet, the breed itself vanished by the end of the 19th century. They gave their best traits to their descendants and then quietly left the stage. The Paisley Terrier. This was the show version of the Skye Terrier. They had long, silky coats that reached the floor. They were the blueprint for the Yorkshire Terrier. Once the Yorkie became popular, the Paisley Terrier became redundant and disappeared. The Hare Indian Dog, kept by the Hare Indians of Canada. They were likely a domesticated coyote hybrid. They were playful and didn't bark. But as firearms replaced trap hunting, the need for these specific dogs declined. Interbreeding with European dogs erased their unique genetic signature. They are a classic case of genetic swamping. The Eland, a name that strikes fear. These were the butcher dogs of the Middle Ages, capable of holding down a bull. They are the forefathers of all bull breeds, bulldogs, pit bulls, boxers. The Eland was the raw clay from which they were sculpted. The Braque du Puy, a French hunting dog, legendary for its speed. It was said to be created by two brothers in the 19th century, but it was inbred too heavily. The gene pool was too small to sustain it. A lesson in the dangers of designer breeding before the term existed. The Laponian Shepherd, not to be confused with the Lapland. These dogs guarded reindeer in Finland. World War II and the Lapland War devastated their population. By the time the war ended, the breed was effectively gone. The Toy Trawler Spaniel, a direct descendant of the King Charles Spaniel, bred for hunting, supposedly. They were actually terrible hunters. They were bred for looks but marketed as sportsmen. They went extinct by the 1930s. The Alpine Mastiff, one of the largest dogs to ever walk the earth. They were the giants of the 19th century. They contributed their size to the modern Mastiff and St. Bernard before vanishing. They were the monster trucks of the dog world. The Black and Tan Terrier, the working man's terrier. They kept the rat populations of London in check. They were refined into the Manchester Terrier, losing their rough edge. The working ratter became a show dog. The old Spanish Pointer, the heavy tank of the pointing world. They were slow, but their nose was infallible. British breeders crossed them with foxhounds to add speed, creating the modern English Pointer. The original heavy version became obsolete. The Taquichi, the companion of the Toltecs and Aztecs in Mexico. They are the mute ancestors of the Chihuahua. They were believed to guide the soul to the underworld. When the Spanish conquered Mexico, the Tecachi's lineage was shattered. The Chingris, the gray dog of France, a favorite of royalty for stag hunting. They were known for their determination. The French Revolution was not kind to royal dogs. Many packs were dispersed or killed. The breed never recovered. The English Water Spaniel, Shakespeare mentions them. They were excellent divers. able to catch ducks underwater. They look remarkably like the poodle. It is likely the poodle absorbed them entirely. The Dogo Cubano, the Cuba Mastiff, a dog with a dark history. They were used to chase down runaway slaves. When slavery was abolished, the breed lost its purpose. Without a job, they ceased to exist. A breed tied to human cruelty. The Belgian Mastiff, a draught dog used to pull carts of milk and cheese. They were the engines of the marketplace. The automobile killed the draught dog. Why feed a dog when a truck doesn't eat? The Fujian dog, kept by the indigenous people of Tierra del Fuego. They were not wolves, but domesticated copeo foxes. This makes them unique. They weren't Tetracanis lupus familiaris. They were a completely different species of pet. They were notoriously independent and aggressive to livestock. As sheep farming expanded, they were hunted to extinction. The White English Terrier, we mentioned them before, but their fragility is a key lesson. They were the first designer victims. Let's pivot to a survivor, the Zawak. They are not extinct, but they are so rare you've likely never seen one. They are the sight hounds of the free people. Their skin is so thin you can see every muscle and bone. This is not starvation. It is heat adaptation. The Soloids quaintly, the Mexican hairless dog. They were thought to be extinct in the 1950s, but were brought back from the brink. They are living artifacts. To touch one is to touch the same skin an Aztec priest touched 500 years ago. The Lundehund, the puffin dog, they have 6 toes on each foot and can bend their heads backward to touch their spine. They were bred to hunt puffins in narrow caves. They nearly went extinct when puffin hunting was banned. Only 6 remained in 1963. Today, they are safe, but they have one of the smallest gene pools of any breed. Every Lundehund is a miracle of conservation. Extinction is usually forever, but sometimes people try to play God. The direwolf project. Breeders are trying to backbreed dogs to look like the extinct direwolf, but it is just a costume. The original DNA is gone. Walking through a dog cemetery is walking through a library of lost stories. Each breed was a chapter in human history. We created them. We shaped them to fit our needs, to turn our spits, hunt our bears, and fight our wars. And when we changed, we discarded them. The Turnspit didn't fit in a world with electricity. The Molossus didn't fit in a world without gladiators. It is a harsh truth. Dog breeds are not natural. They are human technologies. And technology becomes obsolete. But nature finds a way. The genes of these lost dogs are not entirely gone. They are hiding in the mutts and mongrels of the world. That stray dog in the shelter might carry a fragment of the Salish Wool Dog or the old Spanish pointer in its blood. Which modern breeds will be on this list in 100 years? The French Bulldog, the Pug. As we turn against extreme breeding and health issues, some of today's most popular dogs might become the extinct breeds of tomorrow. The wolf remains the constant, the source. While the branches wither and die, the roots stay strong. So the next time you look at your dog, wonder, what ancient ghosts are sleeping in their DNA? Remember the Turnspit, running in the dark. Remember the Wool Dog, sheared on the island. Remember the Moscow Water Dog, the failed experiment. They are all pieces of the puzzle that led us to here. We cannot bring them back, but we can remember them. They served us well, even the ones we treated poorly. The history of the dog is the history of humanity. Our cruelty, our ingenuity, our wars, and our peace. These lost breeds are the footprints we left behind on our journey. Let us ensure that the breeds we have today are bred for health, not just for a job that might disappear. Thank you for visiting the Museum of Lost Breeds. Which extinct breed would you bring back if you could? Tell us in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to uncover more hidden history.